In the programs we've seen till now, there has always been a series of statements faithfully executed by Python in exact order from the top down. What if you wanted to change the flow of how it works? For example, you want the program to make some decisions and do different things depending on different situations, such as printing good morning or good evening depending on the time of day. As you might have guessed, this is achieved using control flow statements, and there are 3 control flow statements in Python: if, while, and for. In this video, we will examine these in more detail. The if statement is used to check a condition. If the condition is true, we run a block of statements called the if block, else we process another block of statements called the else block. The else clause is optional. In this example, we take guesses from a user and check if it's the number that we have. We set the variable number to an integer we want, say 23. Then we take the user's guess using the input function. Functions are just reusable pieces of programs, and we'll talk more about them in the next video. We supply a string to the built-in input function, which prints it to the screen and waits for input from the user. Once we enter something and press enter, the input function returns what we entered as a string. We then convert this string to an integer using int and then store it in the variable guess. Next, we compare the guess of the user with the number we've chosen. If they are equal, we print a success message. Notice that we use indentation levels to tell Python which statements belong to which block. This is why indentation is so important in Python. Notice how the if statement contains a colon at the end. We're indicating to Python that a block of statements follow. Then we'll check if the guess is less than the number, and if so, we inform the user that they must guess a little higher than that. What we've used here is an elif clause, which actually combines 2 related if-else statements into one combined if-elif else statement. This makes the program easier and reduces the amount of indentation required. These statements must have a colon at the end of the logical line, followed by their corresponding block of statements, with proper indentation, of course. You can have another if statement inside the if block of an if statement, and so on. This is called a nested if statement. After Python has finished executing the complete if statement along with the associated clauses, it moves on to the next statement in the block containing the if statement. In this case, it's the main block where the execution of the program starts, and the next statement is the print or done statement. After this, Python sees the end of the program and simply finishes up. The while statement allows you to repeatedly execute a block of statements as long as a condition is true. A while statement is an example of what is called a looping statement. A while statement can have an optional else clause. In this example, we're still playing the guessing game, but the advantage is that the user is allowed to keep guessing until he guesses correctly. There's no need to repeatedly run the program for each guess, as we have done in the previous section. This aptly demonstrates the use of the while statement. We move the input and the if statements to inside the while statement and set the variable running to true before the while loop. First, we check if the variable running is true and then proceed to execute the corresponding while block. After this block is executed, the condition is again checked, which in this case is the running variable. If it is true, we execute the while block again. Else, we continue to execute the optional else block and then continue to the next statement. The else block is executed when the while loop condition becomes false. This may even be the first time that the condition is checked. If there is an else clause for a while loop, it is always executed unless you break out of the loop with a break statement. The true-false are called Boolean types, and you can consider them to be equivalent to the value of 1 and 0 respectively. The for in statement is a looping statement which iterates over a sequence of objects, i.e., it goes through each item in a sequence. In this example, we're printing a sequence of numbers. We generate this sequence of numbers using the built-in range function. What we do here is simply input two numbers, and range returns a sequence of numbers starting from the first number and up to the second number. For example, range 1, 5 gives the sequence 1, 2, 3, 4. By default, range takes a step count of 1, but if we supply a third number to the range, then it becomes the step count. For example, if we had range 152, it would give us 1, 3. Remember that the range extends up to the second number. It does not include the second number. Remember that the else part is optional. When included, it is always executed once after the for loop is over. The for in loop works for any sequence. Here we have a list of numbers generated by the built-in range function, but in general we can use any kind of sequence of any kind of object. The break statement is used to break out of a loop statement. In other words, to stop executing a loop statement, even if the loop condition has not become false or the sequence of items has not been completely iterated. An important note is that if you break out of a for or while loop, any corresponding loop else block is not executed. In this example, we repeatedly take the user's input and print the length of each input each time. We're providing a special condition to stop the program by checking if the user input is quit. We stop the program by breaking out of the loop and reaching the end of the program. The length of the input string can be found out using the built-in length function. Remember that the break statement can be used with the for loop as well. The continue statement is used to tell Python to skip the rest of the statements in the current loop block and to continue to the next iteration of the loop. In this example, we accept input from the user, but we process the input string only if it is at least 3 characters long. So we use the built-in length function to get the length, and if the length is less than 3, we skip the rest of the statements in the block by using the continue statement. Otherwise, the rest of the statements in the loop are executed, doing any kind of processing we want to do here. Note that the continue statement works with the for loop as well. We've seen how to use the 3 control flow statements, if, while, and for, along with their associated break and continue statements. These are some of the most commonly used parts of Python, and hence becoming more comfortable with them is essential.